When you move to a new country, and I've said this before in a previous episode, we don't talk enough about how much of your happiness or how you approach life is driven by your financial confidence. And a ton of things happen to you as a newcomer as you're trying to settle in that really, really shakes you to your core. And within a month or two, sometimes less, or sometimes more, you literally start feeling like, why the hell did I do this? In this episode, I speak to Lauren, she's the head of integrated marketing and comms at Interac. And we talk about the recent survey they just released on newcomers, which found out that starting a new life in Canada literally means that newcomers lose financial confidence within a month, which is, it was pretty depressing to hear. But then when I reflect back on settling into Canada, it made sense because you just sense it. I felt like, yes, I went through this, but I think the big thing for me here was we talked about the biggest takeaways from the survey. Lauren shared how we newcomers, if you're coming to Canada or if you're just here, how you can prep for these issues before you land or if you just landed, and how Interac is helping to mitigate, some of these challenges. This was a really good one. Enjoy. So the first thing I'm going to kick off with is, so Interac, you all just released it's
Yes.
financial survey on what's happening when people move to Canada, and I think that for me, the biggest thing for me there is that thing you all say about once you're starting a new life, your financial confidence actually kind of drops. So before we even talk about the takeaways, your biggest takeaways from the report, I want to explore that a bit more.
Yes.
What are the things that people are saying that kind of struck you? When you see that thing about, because financial confidence is I think it's a big part of who we are as a people.
Well, that's exactly it. The research showed us at the upfront, when people move to Canada, newcomers get here and they feel confident. They think, I know what I'm doing. And then about 61% of newcomers said, I felt confident when I arrived in Canada. And then a month later, that confidence is cut in half. So by the time they get here, they spend a month in Canada, they start to experience the financial system, the job system, the housing market, whatever that might look like. All of a sudden they think, oh my gosh, maybe I don't actually have any confidence at all. And that was a really impactful stat for us. And if I take us back just a minute about why would Interac be interested in looking at this. So if we think about, Interac is the brand that you probably see when you are shopping or when you need to send or receive money from someone. And because we're connected to every bank in Canada, credit unions, other financial institutions, we are one of the only organizations in Canada that really is in everybody's pocket. Whether you are rich, not rich, new to Canada, been in Canada forever, you use our products. So it only makes sense for us to better understand how are Canadians doing when it comes to how they're spending, sending, and receiving their money. Because if we know, then we can tailor programs and education and make sure that people have what they need at their fingertips to live the best life that they can. That's what's important to us. So when Financial Literacy Month rolls around, which is November of every year, this year we thought, we're always interested in the newcomer audience because it's such a vital part of Canada's economy. But we really wanted to look into what is the financial confidence journey like for newcomers. And so we started with this question about how confident do you feel when you get to Canada? And then once we learned, okay, you start off confident, and then half of the group says they feel not confident at all, then we look into, well, why is that and how do we help it?
That thing you say, because I just recorded. I had an episode with the guy who wrote. There's a book he wrote called 17 to a Million. Yes, and his name is Douglas Price. So
Okay.
he wrote the book for 17-year-olds. But after I read it, I said to him that this book is actually for newcomers, for
Ah,
anyone, because one, I do think that when you move to Canada, what you say is right. You're confident when you come here and you kind of know what you feel you know what you want to do.
or you
You learn
think
that
you know, you
or you
think you've done
think,
your research. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But the moment you try to get to the bank, you get thrown like 5 different products, 15 different,
right.
like, and then the other part, and I don't blame anyone. Financial education is a pretty complex topic, and I think we
Yes,
can do better with it.
yes,
But it is so hard to explain. Oh, the unit TFSA, RESP, RRSP. You need to get a job. You need to have bills to pay. You need credit.
yes,
And then more often than not, you get a credit card. No one tells you, oh, like with credit, these are the dangers with credit. Like, you just so you get a credit card, this is the interest rate. What does that mean? What does it mean that you pay a minimum payment? You kind of
yes,
find out all those things along the way. You literally spend the first 1 month just kind of finding out all those things.
yes.
It's a lot of
Almost like
information.
finding out what you don't know.
Yeah. And then the
Yeah,
other part of it is that it's a lot of information thrown at you, and
yes,
it's overwhelming.
yeah. Is that
And
what it
then,
felt like for you?
yeah, it's overwhelming and it's
Yeah,
scary because I made some financial mistakes, to be honest, and
yeah,
I started paying for them over time. And you ask yourself, like, what if I had known about, that this is how it's done here before I landed? Or maybe I did see the material, or maybe it was just there was just a lot thrown at me at that point in time. And it was just like, you know what? I thought I could get away with not looking at this a second time. Because yeah, the bankers do tell you, oh, read the stuff we sent to you. But then you're sending me a credit card with a long paper that that
yeah.
has like,
And all you're seeing is, okay, the ability to pay for my groceries. That's what
yeah,
you're seeing in the moment because you're like, I don't have time to read all this, but I do need to go buy groceries right now. And then it's easy to get behind on your
oh
financial
yeah, it's
literacy
so
so
easy.
quickly. Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. One of the things that came up for us um, through our survey was that people really trust a mentor in this financial confidence space. And this is now a little bit of my conjecture in reading the data, but when you just talked about, the bank sends you this, the bank is telling you this, the bank doesn't feel like they know you. And so how much can you trust that bank when they want you to, they want you to use a credit card, they want to have you as a customer versus a mentor, someone that you can be connected to either before you get to Canada or right after you land through a community services organization, can be really, really helpful in that manner because that's someone who's been through your same experience. You can ask questions that you think are kind of dumb, but they can be really helpful to you in that. So when I think about what what should newcomers consider in order to start building some of that financial confidence, if you have the option to find a mentor or get connected to a newcomer organization that is part of your community, that is a huge help.
Yeah. That thing you mentioned, the mentorship thing, I totally agree with that, because I can imagine that you're moving to a new country. There's a ton of things you're going through. Just having someone who you can talk to and ask all the hard questions without feeling
Yes.
like, am I asking too much? Is this a dumb
Right.
question?
Or is there something in it for them? There's not, if they're your mentor, there's not something in it for them. But for any of the commercial organizations that you might work with, of course there's something in it for
Yes.
them.
Yes.
So that was a big piece of our research.
Now, if you were like, so I assume that there are more takeaways from that, but I just probably, if you think about it from all the data you all saw, so aside from the
Hmm.
fact dropping confidence,
Hmm.
mentorship, like, are there other takeaways that immigrants
Yeah,
like newcomers need to know about?
I think so. I think it's helpful. This is information that's helpful for newcomers to know because they're not in it alone. I think that's one of the main things is you may feel like you get to Canada, it's a bit overwhelming. Maybe you're not connected into a community yet. You feel like you're on your own and you think, has anyone else been through this? I mean, you were saying that to me as part of your reason for starting this podcast is so that people can hear that it is happening with other people and that they aren't alone. So some of this information I think is good for people to hear to know that if they have felt this way, they aren't alone. So one of the things that we learned is that newcomers to Canada face more financial barriers than non-newcomers. And the ones that they call out are lack of Canadian work experience, which is, something that can stymie even the most prepared person as they get here and they think, but I have all of this knowledge and all of this education, and I still can't get a job in my field. You are not the only person who feels that way. Newcomers talk a lot about not having the Canadian work experience that allows them to move forward in their new journey to Canada. So the lack of Canadian work experience, difficulty with housing and the housing market. Affordable housing is something that a lot of newcomers called out as a big barrier to feeling financial confidence. Um, every Canadian is currently feeling the pinch of the cost of living right now. But if you are a newcomer to Canada, what a lot of our survey respondents said is that they get here and what they know from their home country doesn't necessarily translate to the Canadian context. So you don't, all of a sudden, the prices don't mean much anymore because you can't calibrate them based
Mm-hmm.
on what you're used to. So a lot of people called those out as barriers to feeling financially confident as well.
And the part about the housing market is like it's interesting
Mm-hmm.
because, for example, when you just move and you're trying to get a house, you get into this thing where agents tell you or real estate agents say to you, "Oh, you need to get credit. You need to need to have credit history."
Right.
I'm like, "Yo, I just moved here. Like, how
How am
am
I
I going
supposed to
to
have?
get credit
Yeah.
history?" So all you're doing is looking for a landlord who hopefully trusts you enough to give you a
And
place.
right, and has potentially been through the same thing you have to say, I was in your same shoes. Let me help you the way
Yes,
I
that's
needed
how
to
I
be
got my
helped.
first
Yeah.
house. My first house was that. I remember
Yes.
there was a house we wanted to get because it was perfect for us. The landlord sent and I had just moved. I was doing working freelance for a company in the UK.
Hmm.
The landlord sent my freelance employer 10 to 15 questions.
Oh,
10 to 15. Some of them were, I saved a screenshot of that somewhere. I said I'm always going to keep that because for me, it's a reminder of how difficult it was just trying to get a place. It's like he sent them to, does he show up at work early? What's his career progression at the company? Like they were really, really interesting questions. I'm trying to be nice here, but
yes,
they
of
were
course you
they
are.
were really interesting questions that I was just like, all I'm looking for is a place to stay with my
Yeah.
wife and my
Yes.
kid.
Yes.
And
Did you
and
get the house?
no, he didn't give us the
Oh,
house. He didn't give us the house. He just said, like, you know what, I just don't think that you can you can you can keep the house. Like, I don't think. I'm like, so we had to now we found another landlord who sent her a long email explaining, said, oh, this is who we are, this is what we do. The wife does this, I do this, we have a kid, this is how we make money currently. Like, it was like a really long application with attachments and stuff. And she just says, yo, send me your rent and I'll send you the contract. That was how we got the house.
you know what? That is a really, there's one great learning in there, which is tell your story in a way that makes the landlord know who you are.
Yes,
And
yeah,
that's relevant for anyone trying to find a house in this crazy market. But
yeah.
definitely if a newcomer is starting from a place of zero credit history, zero Canadian work experience, you have to make it real because you are a very real person with a very real background. So I guess that's one takeaway that we can give to some of your listeners is
Yeah, actually.
tell your story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've never seen it that way, but like, it's that's actually true. Is tell your story because you're actually a human being, like the other person.
Yeah,
Though some of them will say no, some of them will be like, no, I don't trust you enough
right.
because. But the point is, just tell your story. Go in there and say, this is who I am. This is what I
Yes.
do.
This is
Yeah,
what I'm
because
capable of.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because we did send a really detailed email. She just goes like, yeah, take the house. And so we got the house and we stayed there for like a year. Then we moved to, because that was in Ottawa. Then we moved to Calgary. But then it was much easier now because you've now have built
Yes.
some history in
You have a
Canada.
history. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was much easier to get a place when we moved to Calgary. But that first one, I mean, I remember at the time there are ones where we went to a house and we got there, and then the agent, I called the agent. I'm like, we're here. So he asked, like, so how long have you been in Canada? We're like, we've been in Canada for like 3 weeks. He says, okay. He dropped the phone and he stopped picking. He didn't come. He didn't show up. It was cold. It was minus 16 or so. I
Oh,
was out there.
Ottawa in the winter is the worst.
Yeah, I was out there with my wife was pregnant with a kid. I was out
Oh
there with
my
my
God.
with my 4-year-old,
Yes.
and we're just standing there waiting for him. We called and called and called, and he didn't pick the phone. And we just go like, you know what? Let's go home. He's obviously not coming.
Oh, that's a heartbreaking story. I'm really sorry that it was your
No,
first experience in
I,
Canada.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like it's, as an immigrant, like I feel like you're just gonna go through all these things, and I think it's kind of linked to what the report is saying, because as all these things happen to you in different ways and it hits you in different ways, what starts to happen is that the reality you thought you dreamed up in your head starts to dissolve away, and you start your if you had some money saved, that money is going because you're trying to get a job. It's probably it hasn't
Yes.
come.
Yeah.
You have to get a house. You're probably sometimes staying on Airbnb with someone. If you're lucky enough, you're staying with a friend. But the point is that you start to struggle with stuff, and you start to ask yourself, like, okay, did I make the right call?
Right.
You
Yes.
know, do,
You're so right because if you have the financial confidence underpinning the other things that are so stressful, then maybe you are in a better place overall to struggle strong. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that's the part of this research and why we've done it, and then it's informed who we've tried to partner with to provide resources. Because I do feel it's Interact's responsibility to provide that education and to provide that feeling of financial confidence to Canadians, because I want them ultimately, I want every Canadian, newcomers included, to walk into a store or to sign into their online banking and say, ah, Interac, I know them, I trust them, it's my own money. That's what I want. And so if I can help create that feeling by providing different resources that instill financial confidence, then I think we're doing our job a little bit. So what we did, because this was when we learned through the research that newcomers are looking for programs and learnings that are developed by newcomers for newcomers. Back to that idea of you want to learn from someone you can trust. That was a big light bulb moment for us, and we've now partnered with two different organizations that are offering that for newcomers by newcomers experience. And one of them is, I don't know if you know Credit Canada. They're a nonprofit credit counseling organization, so they help you with your own credit history and so on. And they've created this app called the Butterfly app, and it's specifically for newcomers. It's available in English, French, Spanish, and Hindi. And it does a number of different things. But one of the things I like the most about it is that it includes a budgeting tool, and you can translate that budget into your home country's currency. So that allows you, at least in the beginning, as you're struggling to say, okay, is this $4 milk too much money or the right amount of money? How much would that be in my home currency? You can start to say, okay, wow, I need to go find a coupon or whatever that might look like. But it's one way that you can start to to calibrate your new budget into your old currency. So we said,
Gosh.
I would never have thought about building that, but I am happy to provide the resources to Credit Canada to make sure that that app is free for newcomers. So we've done something, we've done that. And then we were talking about the mentorship before,
Yeah.
with mentorship being such a big thing, from both the feeling overall confidence when you get to Canada to financial confidence to then job confidence. There's an organization called Access Employment, and they have a program for newcomers that connects newcomers in specific fields to experts and employees at organizations currently employed in Canada. So for Interac, and our partnership, we do a mentorship series twice or three times a year where we'll bring in 200 newcomers who are part of the Access Employment and 200 Interac employees, and we'll do almost like speed dating of
Sweet.
here's what I'm good at, and as the newcomer, and then the Interac person will say, well, here's how I do that job. And then in some cases, we are even able to hire some of the people we've met through Access because their employment matches perfectly with a need that we have, and we're a growing company. So that's another way that Interact tries to figure out how to get into that newcomer community and provide support, which makes me really proud.
Yeah. No, those are really beautiful initiatives. And gosh, like the butterfly app thing.
Mhm.
So let me tell you why it's so beautiful.
Okay.
It takes you, okay, let me use, I mean, I was speaking to a lot of my friends and myself. It takes you at least about maybe almost a year to get away from that thing of where you're constantly tracking your spend here in your home country's currency. So you're
Right.
always going like, okay, this is X. How much does this cost back? Oh, it's a
Yeah.
lot of money.
Yes.
And then if you're not working yet, that is a big problem because every single time you do that translation, what hits you is that, damn, I need the money for this.
Right.
And this how
Because the
much it
money that you
costs.
have is money from your home
Home
currency
country.
translate. Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, that's now continually depleting and not growing.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just kind of seeing that, just having something that helps you do that and just keeps you, it tells you, okay, so you're budgeting and because once you start budgeting, you're like, okay, this is how much it costs. So I can
Mhm.
start planning for it. So
Mhm.
that way, yes, it still hits you, but you plan for it. So you can
Mhm.
start planning and looking at what you have. What am I going to prioritize rather than getting hit at the point of spending?
Oh,
Because
good point.
you get it when you get hit at the point of spending, so you're about to spend, you've probably committed to that already, and you spend it, then you
Yes.
change it, and you go like, nah,
Yes.
this
And
isn't great.
it's such a universal feeling of you get to the point of sale and now you're too embarrassed to not buy the thing. And I mean, I was born in Toronto. I've grown up here, and that happens to me all the time. I get up to there's a line behind me, and I think, oh, I can't put this aside because I'm going to look so stupid. So I'll just pay for it and deal with it later. And that can get you into trouble
Gosh,
pretty quickly.
yeah,
Yeah.
damn,
Is this bringing back memories for you?
oh yeah, oh yeah, damn, like because like why I really like the survey is because we don't talk about financial education enough.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's important because we don't talk about financial. Everyone talks about, okay, you're gonna come, go find a house, go get a job, go settle in, find your community. The truth is that financial education just sits under all of that.
Yes.
And if you don't have that, and if nothing is happening, like you don't have enough money, you don't know how much you have, you're struggling to kind of make the ends meet. Even your approach to job hunting, yes, there are people who will shut out everything and focus on what needs to be done. But I think it's hard as an immigrant because there's a lot of things you have to deal with at the same time. I call it the
Yeah.
checklist life. Like you have a checklist and everything in that checklist is asking you to tick them off. You need to get a house. You need to get a job. You need to sort out your
Yes.
bank accounts. You need to register with the health system. You need to get your kids into school if you have kids. You have to do all those things. And every single one of them, even though it's a checklist for you, even though it looks like a checklist, it's it has like mini tasks that you all have to do. So when you put all that together, you literally, your first 1 year is you feeling like you're running on a treadmill that is moving at 16 kilometers per
Yes.
hour, and you can only do 10 kilometers per hour. So you have to somehow find a way to make
Yes.
up for the balance of six kph that you don't have. You just have to
Yes.
find a way to make it work. And so you
Yes.
work every day, you wake up every day and you're like, okay, another day. Let's do this.
What's on the checklist today? What am I trying to tick off today? Yeah, I can imagine exactly how exhausting that would be. Um, and I also imagine that as a newcomer, there is a bombardment of stuff that comes at you. And it can be difficult to know what and who do I trust because none of this has any context for me. So if I don't know that Canada has five major banks and that they're all so big and valuable and strong that they're globally recognized, so I can trust them because at least I know they're not going to fall apart and my money's going to be safe with them. Like that's kind of table stakes. But how are you supposed to know that? RBC is not going to tell you that Scotiabank is also a very safe bank. Like they're all coming at you, and you're out here saying, "Could someone just tell me the answers, please?" Yes, yeah. So I mean, the good thing about Interac and what we do is that we are connected to all of the banks, but we are not a bank ourselves.
Yeah.
And we are our one job is to make sure that your money gets safely from your bank account to the person or the merchant that you want to spend it with. We do that, and then our hope is that you choose Interac to do those things because you trust that we are that connected. But that was a big part of the survey was realizing that number one, newcomers want the 101 type learning. Like don't start me on my kids' education savings plan yet if I don't quite know who I should pick for a checking account.
Yeah.
And if I don't know how to choose a banking package that is going to be right for me versus for the bank.
Yeah.
Um, and so we as realizing that is such a good bit of advice to any organization that is looking to work with newcomers or gain newcomers as clients is start with the basics. Help someone understand the budgeting process, the how to use your bank account. Um, maybe the right credit card for you is not the right credit card for anyone else. So understanding that that's a good call out, I think, for any organization that is looking to gain loyalty from
The
newcomers
newcomers.
is yeah, build the trust with me so that I can then put my investment into you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think for me, it's just to kind of round up, like I think the last question just to just ask is, if you think about like all the people have said, all the people say to you, the work you all are doing, I like, what do you think are like the three biggest things? If someone who's thinking of moving to Canada today, like how do you think there's any way to prep to handle some of these issues before you land?
Hmm.
Like what do
Such
you
a
think?
I think that's such a good question. So my in knowing that newcomers told us that mentorship was really important, I would say, and I don't know this myself, but if it's possible to connect to a newcomer organization before you get to Canada, like look for one that's a nonprofit run by newcomers, looking to connect with newcomers from similar communities. If you can do that, that feels like the best first step because potentially then you can have conversations in your own language that say, okay, what do I need to know? What should I look out for? And where are my best opportunities for learning or for job prospects? Because one of the things, also, this was interesting. I'm going to get the stats wrong maybe because I don't have them in front of me. But when we sliced and diced the information by province, certain provinces had much higher levels of newcomer confidence than others. So for instance, Saskatchewan has very high levels of confidence, and people who our survey respondents put up their hands to say, yeah, I have a mentor. They really helped me. I feel confident. I feel like I'm ready to tackle an unexpected expense. Whereas newcomers in Ontario did not feel the same way to the same degree. And then Alberta and BC are sort of more confident than Ontario, but less confident than Saskatchewan. So if you were thinking, okay, where are my best job prospects? And you have never been to Canada before, you're going to have no idea that choosing to live in Saskatchewan versus Ontario versus Quebec is not a hop and a skip. Like you're not just going to land in Toronto and if you can't get a job, drive to Regina. You got to know that
Gosh.
how big is it? So if you can connect with someone who can say, oh, you know what, your expertise would be perfectly suited to this agricultural industry that's based in Regina, and you might have really great luck there. And this is a growing province, and there's lots of opportunity there. Okay, it's going to be really cold and really flat, but maybe that's where you want to go. But how are you to know that if you are at in your home country, just sort of thinking about Canada as this monolith that you don't know the ins and outs of yet? Because if I put it in the opposite, if I was, where did you move to Canada from,
Moved
Duzi?
from Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay, so if I was to be moving to Nigeria, I would have no idea. I would have
Yeah.
no idea beyond what I've seen in movies and read a little bit about. And yes, I would do some research, but I would love to have someone say, okay, you're a PR expert. You're the city with the greatest concentration of commercial organizations is here. Maybe you might want to live in this suburb because it could be more affordable for you, whatever that might be. That would be extremely valuable to me. And so I think the same has got to be true for people looking to come to Canada. The other thing I do know is that everybody wants a newcomer customer to their bank. That's a huge growth opportunity. Canada welcomes so many immigrants a year. That's and when you are five big banks in the country that bank almost 90% of Canadians, you're always looking for the new customer. So be wary, but take advantage. So if you can get connected to a mentor who can help you say, okay, you'll be really happy if you open a bank account before you get there, if you have a low fee credit card, if you know how your Interac debit card works, because then at least you can get started. And from there, let's build on top of that.
Yeah. You know, why I was laughing is that thing you said about it looks like a really simple statement. The thing you said about seeing car as a monolith,
Yeah.
but it is super important because you're right. Like when you're moving, so I remember when we were moving, there's where you going to. So you looked at it. Yeah, you did some research. You saw cost of living and stuff.
Yeah.
But Alberta is not BC and is not Ontario
Right.
and is not Manitoba, nor is it Yukon or Saskatchewan.
Right.
They're entirely different across many, many factors.
Yes.
And I feel like one thing that is lacking in a lot of the conversations is like, what do I need to know before I move to a particular province that can be somehow contextualized to who I am? Because
Yes.
to some extent, because if you decide to move to Ontario because you hear that it's great for jobs, okay, what sort of jobs is it great for?
Right.
And what other things are you thinking about? Like, what are you weighing everything? Or is it just that because for newcomers, it's so easy? And I don't blame anyone because I'm also like that. Is I don't blame anyone who says like the first thing we're thinking in our head as you're moving is where can I get a job? Because you want to get a
Yes.
job very fast enough so that you can kind of get going and start paying your
Yes.
bills and all that kind of stuff. So it's a
Yes.
fair way to look at things, but we need to be able to show newcomers that okay, there's the job pillar. There are also other important pillars that if you don't sort them out right, you'll get a job, and if you're not careful, you lose the job pretty fast because there are a lot of other things that you haven't gotten right. And so everything kind of affects how you show up at the job. And so then your employer is like, I don't think you're a serious person. But it's just that it's not that you're not a serious person. You're just dealing with life.
Yeah. And the last thing you want to be is miserable. You
Yes.
go somewhere, you get a job, and you realize I don't like this town. I don't like this city. There's nobody here that is going to hang out with me. And that now you're stuck. And that's the reason you came to Canada to not be stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes.
But thank you. This has been so good. Thank you so much.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for getting to this point of the episode. Like, I really, really enjoyed talking to Lauren about this. And I do agree. Mentorship is one big way for making it easier for yourself as you're trying to settle into Canada. Speak to people who have been there before you, who have gone through what you've gone, and who understand exactly what you're feeling. You know, it's not just some alien concept to them. As always, thank you so much. If you know someone we should talk to, send them our way. Please like, share, subscribe, follow us. If you know someone who this will help, send to them. Have a beautiful day.